when I was actually a Muay Thai boxer. And so I've always been, I know, see, the eyebrows get raised. I'm a Gemini. I'm a manifesting generator. I am like, of all, like in every astrology you want to pick, I am the duality. I'm always the dual sign. I'm the sun and the moon. I'm a fire dragon. Like I'm all the things. And people used to say, oh, Geminis are two-faced. And I said, no, we're not two-faced. We just have a really high capacity to hold two things that are very opposed to be true.
Every life has a soundtrack. Join me as we invite guests to share their journey through music, one song at a time. 10 moments, 10 memories. I'm your host, Sean, and welcome to 10 Tracks.
Are you ready?
Welcome to 10 Tracks. My guest today is Tahira, speaker, confidence and leadership mentor, and creator of Balance by Tahira. Welcome, Tahira.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Where are you in the world today?
I am in very sunny Brighton, UK, which is on the south coast, right on the sea, but originally I'm Canadian.
Okay, but Brighton is home.
Brighton is home now.
And you grew up in Canada?
Yeah, I grew up in Montreal, which is in the French-speaking part of Canada in Quebec. So I grew up there for my whole life, went to French school my whole life, and then moved here just around the age of 30.
Okay. And so now you've from Montreal to the UK. Tell us a little bit of your background, because speaker, also confidence and leadership mentor, but you've also had a previous kind of...
I've had many iterations. I've had many iterations and reinventions. So my background is actually in beauty as a makeup artist in film and television. So I started working in beauty in salons when I was 19 years old. I had really, really wanted to become a makeup artist, even though I wasn't really clear that that was like a job you could have. It just seemed very distant for me. But I just started working in a salon, did my makeup school at night while I was in university, started working in the salon as a summer job. And then, one thing led to another. The second salon I worked at, the owner also worked in film and TV. The industry was quite small. It was mid-90s. In Montreal, you could kind of do both a little bit, like have a salon career, or people would do salon weekends and work on set during the week. And then it just kind of rolled on from there. I just fell onto a film set one day, replacing somebody who had been ill, and just was terrified. Went to the bathroom and cried because it was so overwhelming. I was about 21 at the time, but I also loved it. I was addicted to the adrenaline of it. And then which led to, one thing led to another. And I basically worked mostly in film, but then also advertising, TV, photo shoots. In Montreal, it was a smaller market at the time, so you could kind of cross industries. And then decided I knew that I'd always known that I wanted a big move and a big change and a big metropolis. And I was actually going to move to New York. And I was working on, and I got this film that was happening in South Africa, and I was going to just save my money and move to New York. But my dad was German. I have a European passport, and this job in South Africa was finishing in London, and I just could be there. I could just be there. I didn't need any papers because I had my passport. And so I just kind of, basically the short version is I basically just stayed and made it work. And I sat in a hotel room with a like kind of first generation Nokia brick in 2006, and cold called 22 agencies, and two would agree to see me. One took me. And then I just kept in film. But after having my son in 2013, I'd already been working in the industry for, nearly 20 years at that point, or a good 15 years at that point. And it's tiring. Like, it's a lot. It takes a lot of your time. It takes a lot of your life. And so I thought, okay, on my mat leave, I would return to my first love was actually doing photo shoots and celebrity and red carpet and beauty. So I returned to that. And then, but I'd already read in 2010, Gay Hendrix's The Big Leap. So somewhere in the heart of my soul, I knew there was something else.
Hmm.
And so I went on mat leave, left film, but when my son was about four, 3.5, 4, the industry just kind of sucked me back in. It's very attractive and it's very easy, and I loved it. I gotta say, like, I loved my job so much. I loved the people, I loved the travel, and then one day I didn't even like it anymore.
Uh,
It was sort of in COVID and in the pandemic, and besides 1 year off in the pandemic, which was really difficult, I'd already started to pivot doing more content at that stage, beauty content, because I needed something a bit more flexible around my child, around my son, and my husband's in the industry as well. And it was just very difficult to have two people who worked like 15 hours a day with no
right.
family nearby to help. So I started doing a bit of content. So the pandemic kind of pushed me more in that direction. So I pivoted then already to working more with beauty brands, sharing a message around conscious beauty, beauty that was more organic, more natural. But really from this angle of over the age of 40, like I really had to battle that demon of how would I be relevant over the age of 40, and working with people and brands to help them feel confident from the outside. And once again, those niggles of my soul came creeping in, and the whispers that that is described in the book, the Big Leap, which I am actually rereading as part of a mentorship my mastermind space that I'm in. And it's so fun to reread this like 15 years later, and still find gold. And I was like, the whispers were just getting louder and louder. And it was really like, it's time to go. Like, you are complete here. It's easy to stay, and you can stay, and there will be money, and there'll be security, and there'll be other forms of difficult, but it was time to go. And so, a little bit on a whim and a prayer, followed a bit of divine inspiration, had decided that I would leave, went to a yoga teacher training as a bit of like, this is going to be my big pivot. And the yoga teacher training was a little bit the gateway drug. I had reactivated my membership to Mindvalley, which, if you don't know, is a kind of international online platform for personal development, and just was getting their sort of mailer, their normal promotional emails. And this is a great story. It was, in fact, this is totally true. We were home in Canada for Christmas and New Year's, and it was New Year's Eve at approximately like 11:45 Canada time. And I'd gone upstairs at my parents' house to check my phone to see who had wished me overnight from Europe. And
Right.
in that way that you do on your phone, you scroll, and I ended up in my emails, and there was this email that had come through from Mindvalley, life coaching certification, like, I don't know, like, say it was like basically save the taxes kind of thing. It was going to be saving the taxes for me if I booked before midnight in whatever time zone it was. I still had time, and I
Hmm.
just kind of clicked buy now, and I didn't tell anybody, and I put it on my credit card, and I didn't actually even know what a life coach was. I heard of the name, I had a vague idea, but I didn't really understand, and I just didn't tell anybody for like 6 weeks. I mean, my husband knows now, but I just put it on my credit card, and I didn't even think. And
What year was
I
this?
honestly, this is 2023. And
2023. Okay.
then, so my pivots happened between 2021 and 2023. And then 2 weeks into the course, I was like, okay, God, I get you. I get why you put me here. I see my place now. It was like something locked in. After feeling like I had been floating in my career for so long, in my life almost for so long, something locked in. And I was like, okay, this is it. This is where we're meant to be. And there we go. That's the story.
Oh, excellent. And my big question is how does music fit into all of this balance for you? So obviously now with the family, with your son, and with the type of work you were doing, and now with this kind of moving in more of a spiritual direction, where
Yeah.
does music fit into all of this? How important is
So
it?
interesting because, well, I feel like I stopped listening to new music somewhere in 2003 and just keep revisiting what I loved, which is not entirely true, but a little bit. So music was really important to me when I was a young teenager. Like I'm I didn't even have a Sony Walkman. My mom refused to buy me the like branded version. So I had like an RCA one that was like,
Hmm.
I almost wanted to paint it yellow just to look like everybody else. And, through those pivotal teenage years, like I just remember having my earphones in all the time and listening to Sinead O'Connor on a loop, turning the cassette over. I can tell you exactly when which song is the turnover song and stuff like that. And then when I moved out, like another big memory, I had one of those 5 CD changers. Oh, here, this is funny. My friend Adrian, my bosom buddy Adrian, who was my first roommate, I had it on a timer to set off this like merengue music as a wake up. But then sometimes I'd sleep over at my boyfriend's house and forget that this automated thing would go on at like 5 in the morning because I was already working in film. So I'd be getting up so early. And she's an engineer and she'd be like, ah. And, and so music was like my wake up. And with my second roommate, having that same 5 CD changer with Jill Scott on a loop with Kanye West, with but then also like really random, like the Blind Boys of Alabama, which I haven't
Hmm.
listened to in years, with Ben Harper. Like we just had this really eclectic mix. And then it falls away, and then it turns into baby music. And like I got those CDs that were so like all the cool, so we played a lot of Pete Seeger to my son. So there was this moment, we have these videos that are just like heartbreakingly adorable of him being like 2 and being like, she'll be coming round the mountain. And it's like, oh my God, I can't even. Um, and more obscure Pete Seeger songs.
Hmm.
And those baby lullaby musics where they took like Coldplay and turned it into lullaby music. And then it just fell away. Like we would always play music in the trailer. We would always play music in the morning. We always play music in the salon. In the salon, it was really kind of like mood music. Then in the trailer, it was like mood music. But listening to new music, discovering new music had fallen away by then. It was like all about setting tone, setting mood. And then there's just these seminal songs that like mark times in life.
Yeah.
And um, yeah, and then now moving into, so always kind of like I actually tend to work better in silence, like I really do. So I'm not someone who has the radio on or listens to music a lot if I'm working, because I don't think to, except for now. Moving into yoga. So I've done yoga my whole life. And moving into the training at sort of a couple of years ago, starting to have more that kind of, I don't know, I want to call it like spa sounding music, basically yoga studio music, right? Having that, but then discovering this whole other aspect of music, the like, um, those like binaural beats and frequency music. And then like, like, there's this, Niraj Naik has this breath work with Soma meditation, and he uses beats
Hmm.
and he uses music and stuff like that. And so now music is like almost like a tool. It's like a set my brain tool. So I have many playlists. I have a playlist for my yoga class, which I teach once a week. I have it called a joyful movement yoga, not yoga, joyful movement playlist, which I play like when I want to get myself up before a call. I try to do it every day, get in the mood, like 1 to 3 songs. um, Music to help people. So, like in my classes, in my calls, like whenever I'm doing a master class, like I always start with music, get the energy up. It is a set the tone, set the mood, set the mindset tool now, as opposed to something I necessarily listen to as an art form. And not to take
Hmm.
away from that. And then simultaneously, I've always been very wordy. Words are extremely important to me. Lyrics are extremely. I used to just learn lyrics like very easily. Like I wouldn't even have to think about it. So if I don't like the lyrics, I don't care how good the beat is. I don't care how good the song is. If I like the lyrics, and they don't have to be the most poetic. Like Rhythm and Is a Dancer is epic. Like it's a source companion or a soul companion. I don't even know what they say. And what actually is really funny now, like my son gets obsessed with lyrics, but he finds them and he learns them. And I'm like, no, 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 no. You have to listen to the song and then like make up the words in your head that make no sense.
Yeah.
But from what you're hearing, like that's the fun, that's the joy.
I do think that having the lyric is as vital as the beat or the rhythm or the
The
song itself.
melody.
Yeah, because if you don't have something important to say, and it could be simple, it could just be that I love you. The words
Mm-hmm.
have to be just something that is strong and concise. I think where I lose on the radio if I'm in the car sometimes, and there's an English station here that I can get news from, is songs that are just not really, and maybe I'm getting
Yeah,
to a certain age, but then I just
I
because
know there's that too.
it's mostly the lyrics. I'm not really
Mm,
a huge country fan, but I remember listening when I lived in California. There was a country singer, and he has a song called "I'm Getting Drunk on a Plane." And that just kind of
mm.
threw me because it's something that I would have never expected
So
or wouldn't.
random.
Yeah, and I'm thinking this is actually quite clever or funny, And then there's a
Yeah.
couple of other country songs now that I find besides some of the old classics
Mm,
like Johnny Cash, etc. But stuff like
mm.
that was never really my genre. And then I hear these kind of more witty kind of stuff that I find more. There's some humor in it as well, so you don't have to be taken too seriously. If
Yeah,
we,
and I mean, not to say, sorry, not to say that instrumentals, like I love an instrumental, because then if you're not going to have lyrics, then that's a whole different category to me. And I love instrumentals or classical or like I said, like frequency beats music, like binaurals and stuff like that. That to me is a different category. And again, like meditation music, like I love, or like Chantra Siba, she's like incredible. Like
yeah.
those kinds of things that's a different realm to me then.
I got introduced to I mean I've known Brian Eno for many many years, even from when he first was with Roxy Music, and so I'm a huge well I was a big fan and some of his stuff, but I got introduced to one of his albums from I think the late 70s or 70s, Music for Airports, and it was super
Oh, I
cool.
used to fall asleep to that. That
Yeah,
used to be and I used to literally listen to it. There was a time where I was traveling a lot, and that's when I used to listen to it on a plane to fall
yeah,
asleep.
exactly. And it's like each track, I think it's like four tracks or four segments, and they're about 20 minutes each. And I remember hearing that, especially at night, same. Not have when I'm struggling to sleep or something, I put that on, especially when I used to travel a lot more and I'd be in hotels or something. I'd be like, this is perfect for what I need right now and stuff. So, but it's just when you listen
I,
to those sounds, there's still something about it. It brings this whole story, even if it doesn't have any lyrics to it. I find it incredible.
yeah, and a bit like sense that really evokes like an exact moment in time. And like I remember I had that, those little tiny teeny iPods, that first gen, the mini. I had a
Nano.
red one, and I can even see that sort of digitized writing of Brian Eno, Music in Airports. I can see it, and it really is to me early 2000s.
Yeah. Um, Let's dive into your first track. This you mentioned her name already. This is one of her iconic albums. I find this album is incredible. Almost every song on here, I would probably say, is just to listen to it in its entirety or pull them apart. They're just they still stand today. I feel like the sound is quite. It's not dated in any way if you think about it. Sinead O'Connor,
100%.
you've picked
Absolutely.
I'm stretched on your grave. Tell me about that.
Mm. So to me, Nothing Compares to You is not even the best song on the album. And of
Yeah.
course, it got its fame, it got its moment, and quite correctly so. But it was not, to me, the best song on the album in terms of how it moved people. But I just remember Stretch on Your Grave was like something I'd never heard before. And even actually Mandinka also on that, which is on the previous album, I think.
Hmm.
Um, it was never something I'd heard before, and it was so different. And of course, like I was 14, so sometimes it's also a bit like your age and what you've been exposed to, combined with like whatever at the time. But it was just, and I remember being in the hallways of my school with my earphones on, trying to figure out my identity. Like I would wear a different outfit every day. I mean, my best friend can attest to this. I would just have a different look on every day because I couldn't figure out, I was all in black, quote, gothy one day, then like, mid 90s, like sharp Janet Jackson blazer the next day. Like I didn't know who I was. And I mean, I still don't, right? I'm still trying to figure her out. But I just remember and getting kind of told off. We weren't allowed having earphones in the hallways and being told off, and then walking around the corner, putting it back on, and it was just so incredible. And partially the song is because I went to see her in concert. So I would have been maybe 14, 15, 16, maybe at the time. And I went with my friend. It was in Montreal. It's the old Forum. It doesn't exist anymore, but there's this big venue,
Hmm.
and it was just her on stage wearing white, like the sort of
Wow.
pre Kylie with the like this white thing on her head. And she was just her singing in this one single spotlight in this enormous, well, enormous stadium. There are bigger stadiums now, but it was enormous at the time. And I remember when this song came on, she just had this like recording machine. It looked like an old film machine playing the sound, but it
Real
was
to
like
real,
a
maybe.
kind of a real to real kind of thing. And
Mhm.
she just sang over it. And it was like she didn't have a band. She didn't have a and it was absolutely like monumentally incredible. And it's just such a you know, and it was almost like actually when she passed, like I almost couldn't listen to it. I hadn't listened to any of her music for years just because the way you do.
Mhm.
And when she passed, it's like I couldn't listen to it. It was like, oh, a little part of 14-year-old me was dying in there, and or was gone or was disappearing or facing that. And it was only partially because you made me think about songs, but I was thinking it kind of came up, and I listened to the album again, and I'm like, oh, every single song is incredible.
Yeah. And I do, I think you're right. Although I do like her version of Nothing Compares to You, 'cause it's a Prince song. And I've heard Prince's version. I actually think she's
Mm.
like it blows it away. And it's the same. You know, I think Bob Dylan writes a lot of great songs. Other bands cover his songs and make it a complete new song. I think Jimi Hendrix did that with a Bob Dylan songs. So I think this album and especially this track is incredible because if I don't know exactly where the beat came from, but I know Public Enemy used that same drum beat in one of their songs. It was mixed in, and I don't know if she looped it from them or if they looped it from somebody else or sampled it, and then she got it. But it's definitely, I can hear that in that. But then when you hear her voice, it's just these two clashing sounds that come together in such an incredible way. And it has a lot of like it I think reading about this album from her, she wrote about her mother and the abuse and things like that, so it's
Mm.
quite a she was very honest and bare, I think, in her with her
Mm.
soul on these songs and the lyrics she wrote here, so it's incredible. now
Absolutely.
now we go to something a little bit more upbeat. Definitely. I'd never heard this. I know obviously Wyclef, but this is
Oh,
his song called Perfect Gentleman. And
just
then
because she
when you hear
dances
the
go
lyrics,
go, it don't mean she's a hoe now. Oh my God. I was obsessed. I mean, I still love Wyclef. There's a couple of albums that I didn't love as much, but I went to see Wyclef with my friend Emily, who also was a makeup artist and became a coach. A lot of us who are makeup artists
Mhm.
came into the service helping space. And we were obsessed and we loved him and we worked together a lot and we would listen to him on repeat. And he came to Montreal because there's a big Haitian community in Montreal.
Uh-huh.
And he played at this tiny venue, tiny, and it was right before it was an album. It was after that album. I can't remember. Preacher Son. It was right before Preacher Son came out, and he was sort of testing out the album. And he did the whole set for however long, like an hour and a half, 2 hours.
Mhm.
And the crowd was having a great time, and it was a brilliant, brilliant time. And he goes, "Are you having fun?" He goes like, and he just I think the club was owned by a Haitian man, and he just asked, and he said, "They're letting me play it. Shall we do it again?" And he did the whole set again. He just did it back to back twice. It
Wow.
was everybody went bananas. I think the set was about an hour and a half. It wasn't the super longest set in the world, but it was absolutely brilliant. And one of the big songs off Preacher's Son that I think hadn't been released at that point, he played and he's like, "Do you like this? It's on my next album." So of course, you know, you felt that intimacy that like we were being asked what we thought. But
Yeah.
Perfect Gentleman is such an indicator. It used to just get me bopping. You know, it's not necessarily culturally something I could really relate to. It's very New York. I loved
Hmm.
New York, or I still love, I mean, I haven't been in almost 20 years, but I love New York at the time. I used to go a lot with my friend, with my roommate, and it just invoked this like way of being. And also what I loved about Wyclef music is was this Creole interjection that he would put in. You know, I had loved the Fugees, and it really was this different, it was different to a lot of stuff out there in the kind of hip hoppy R&B space, and that's what was so unique about it. And I just remember that song just being so much fun. I used to play that. I mean, I played the album on repeat, and that was also new to me, like having like um spoken word interjections as part of the album. You know, this is still
Hmm.
back when we used to listen to an album top to bottom. Now we were on CD, so there was no turning over, there was no breaking it up, but you would start at the beginning, you would listen to it all the way through, and then you'd start again. And then
Yeah.
only would you start to maybe shuffle it or find the song that you liked. But there were these, like the idea of the intro song, a little spoken word moment, two songs, refer back to the first song with another song. I mean, it was like a book.
I think
It
people's
was the most
attention
incredible thing.
spans don't have the, they don't still have the focus to listen to a whole side of an album anymore. It's a shame
No,
because
I
you
mean,
miss
unless
out
you're
on
home and like we'll put it on.
yeah. There's also, again, the line, she does the go-go, which is so
Yeah.
kind of old school. And I remember growing
Yeah.
up in New Orleans, and we would go to the French Quarter, which, in the downtown
Yeah.
area of New Orleans, and there would be Bourbon Street, which had clubs back in the 70s. I think they're all bars now for only, but they would be go-go. It would say signs like on the outside of and
Mm,
so even driving down some of these streets and stuff as a little kid, you'd be like, don't look in there. Not that there were things going on in the
mm,
daytime, but it was like that thing, which is so kind of old school way of saying strip clubs or something like
mm.
that. So
Yeah.
kind of
And
funny.
it was also this idea of and then the rap that comes in the middle part about like from the point of view, it was like storytelling also, right? Because
Yeah.
it's like from the point of view of the man who's in love with this woman, from the point of view of the woman who's like, I'm just trying to get through school. So you and your judgments can all piss off. And it was like it just yeah, to me it's a genius song that takes a kind of very I don't want to say serious issue, but like a something that is deserves attention and seriousness, and story tells it in a whole different way.
Yeah. We get into track three. Now I have to
Mm.
say this song got stuck in my head when I listened to it one day in the car, and I made, your playlist. I was listening to the songs, and then when this one came on after it finished and I was doing something else, it was still in my head. So then I'm like,
I can't remember the order in which I
Tahira.
sent these to you. So,
So this is Manu Chao,
ah, Manu
Bongo
Chao
Bong.
also. Oh my God, how did you not know King of the
I
Bongo?
didn't know
He
this
lived in.
song.
No, they started. Papa whisking. Even my son sings it. Papa whisking of the Congo, Mama whisking of. It was
This was
epic.
popular in the
Another
UK,
great
right?
concert.
Or was this in
No,
Montreal
so
you
this
heard
is
this?
still Canada. This is still my
Okay.
youth. Um, and I don't think he was as popular here, but he was popular in France, popular in Quebec, certainly
Yeah.
where I'm from, popular more in Europe. And there's definitely a time like this is late 90s, early 2000s. I was living with my second roommate at the time, I think. But and it was that fusion that's kind of Spanish, French, Central American, North African, like incredible beats, incredible tunes, incredible melodies, and then really smart lyrics as well. The mix of languages, the Spanish, the French, the English. And I saw him in concert as well. And I remember it was so hot because summers in Montreal get really, really hot. And you can have
Hmm.
air conditioning in concert halls, but and it was also a smallish venue. And actually gone with my cousin who lives in Germany now, and he's 5 years older than me. And he's like, because I'm an only child and he's an only child, we were sort of like we not quite siblings, but sort of. And so we went together, and I didn't love crowds. I can't remember what age I was, say early 20s. And so he's like, I'm going forward. Going to the front. You okay? I'm like, yeah, I'm okay. And then I get scared by myself, so I join him a bit forward. And then he go, I'm going more forward. You okay? I'm like, and then he'd go more forward, and then I joined him 5 minutes later. And it was so hot, and I remember like we were like it's such uplifting music, like we were all dancing, jumping. And he's like, are you all thirsty? Manager, I was like on stage going, are you thirsty? We're all like, yeah. And he starts shooting bottles of water at the crowd, or like opening bottles of water and spraying them. We were like, so fun. And he's got some beautiful songs. And he's always kept this really mixed culture vibe and
Hmm.
summer. And you can kind of picture yourself being on a beach or surfing or having a cocktail and listening to it. And it just is, yeah, it gets in your ear.
Yeah, it definitely, but it was a good a new song for me to hear and to learn because it was something that I'd never heard it before. So I don't know if I missed because I think it was 98 that it came out, and
Yeah.
maybe I was in the UK at the time, so I'm not sure what happened why I didn't.
No, I feel like that was more French culture, European
Yeah.
culture.
The next track is again another artist who I wasn't aware of. I think I may have seen something in her in the film because I think she's a singer, she's a model and actress, poet. But I wasn't familiar, but I love her voice, Jill Scott, and it's called The Long Walk. It's a really good
Just oh,
this song sounds really the whole kind of energy of it is really nice, but I'm not familiar with her before.
oh, again, another CD I played on repeat in the early 2000s. And just the lyrics, the poetry more so. And so Jill Scott and Angie Stone were sort of around at the same time, and Angie Stone has a slightly different vibe, but also in that same vein. And I used to sort of interchange those two albums on repeat that were out at the same time. Um, and then Jill Scott's album After Long Walk, which I think the album is Golden, but she has the song called Golden. That's definitely one of the tracks that
Mhm.
I listen to a lot, Living Your Life Like It's Golden. And she is, yeah, the poetry and the rest of the album is also so clever and beautiful and just evokes. It just evokes and just how she uses the sounds of the words the way a proper poet does.
Yeah.
Um, and actually it always reminds like in grade 4, so I went to French lycée, and so there's a lot of like French literature and poetry in my sort of back catalog of pretend knowledge. But I always remember this example of Boris Vian, is a French poet, and it was explained to us about how you use words to like evoke a thing, and it was like le son long des violons de l'automne blesse mon cœur d'une lenteur monotone. And it's like about how you use this sound. And Jill Scott has that same, how she uses the sound and the cadence. And it's almost like you can evoke this whole world just from the sounds more so than the actual content of each word. Does that make
Hmm.
sense? It's
Yeah.
like it's the sound is making a picture in your mind. Of course, it's words, so your brain is computing, but still, there's like a layer there, and that was
Yeah.
really cool.
It was definitely interesting because I was listening to her words and what she was saying, and then she's like, we can do this, or we can do that, or we don't have to say anything, or something like that. And I
We
thought
can
that
just
was a
hear and be silent.
yeah, which is so cool because you don't, think about that. Like we can talk, we don't have to talk, and we can just be, together. And there's some beautiful
It's
lines in
chill
it.
and just be. And
Yeah,
then like and how she just stops it. It's like chill and just be, or maybe we can, and it's just like,
yeah.
yeah, brilliant.
Track 5. This
Mm.
is it's one of my heroes who wrote this originally, and this is a cover. He's
Mm.
actually from Quebec, and I've
He's from
been to Montreal.
Montreal.
Yeah, I've been to Montreal a couple of times, and every when I was there, it makes me think of him for some reason, even though he spent a lot of time
Of
in New
course.
York and all over. But like, I just feel like him walking around in this Burberry Mac in Montreal at night in the old town or something. That's the kind of vision I got of. But and Jeff Buckley, interestingly, the connection now is he spent time in New Orleans. He was living down there, and I think he actually died near New Orleans or something, his fatal death. But it's weird because I was not really into Jeff Buckley when he first came out and everything. This whole album was like everyone was hysterical about it. It was like, it dropped and it was
Lilac
like
wine.
everywhere. And then I got into it later, and there's so many beautiful songs, but his version of Leonard Cohen's Hallelujah is
Hallelujah.
just it's I don't even know, there's not words to say because it's so beautiful. And the
No,
original lyric in the song is great, but Jeff Buckley's version just takes it to another level.
one of the rare occasions where the cover is better than the original in terms of what it evokes. Obviously, the lyrics were there from the beginning. So, I mean, look, there might be somebody in Montreal who's not a Leonard Cohen fan. They're definitely not my friend. I don't think we could ever be friends, but no, I mean, we kind of, and it's not like we kind of grew up with him. Like you kind of grew up with a consciousness of him because obviously the age gap, in terms of when his music was more popular. But he's just
Yeah.
in the ether, And so the Hallelujah, and so Lilac Wine came out and Jeff Buckley did the Hallelujah. And I also was not that into Jeff Buckley, but who was into Jeff Buckley was my dearest, dearest, sweetest Sandra, who's no longer with us, but she loved music and she was an Anglophile. So she had this really crazy mix of loving English football,
Hmm.
wearing Stan Smiths, and loving English. Like she introduced me to like Keane and Coldplay when they first came out, and Jeff Buckley. And she would just listen to this album. We were working together, and she put it on, and I was like, "Oh my god, this is so sad." And I was like, "Come on, let's get happy." I mean, and but then of course there's the Hallelujah, which you cannot ignore, and of course it sat with me. And so it stayed in my, so the Hallelujah stayed in my psyche. And I'm going to come back to Jeff Buckley's The Hallelujah in a second. But my husband and I, when before our son was born, went to Birmingham to see Leonard Cohen. Leonard Cohen was on tour in sort of, I want to say like 2000 and like 8, 9, 10, 11, some point then.
Yeah.
And we were both working a lot. So the only time we could see him was a Saturday night. And the only time he was playing on Saturday was in Birmingham. So we trekked out to Birmingham. It was Christmas time. There was a Christmas market in Birmingham, which was really random. So we went to the Christmas market and went to see Leonard Cohen. And he was in this great arena, this lovely, lovely venue, but sort of like a small arena. And he was there in this like three-piece suit with the fedora, with the spotlight, very simple, did his stuff, old
Just the
songs, new
boss.
songs. The crowd was going wild. He was just amazing. And at one point, there was this one moment of silence and this lull. And someone shouts, "We love you, Leonard." And in his gravelly voice, without a skipping a beat, he goes, "Well, I'm rather fond of you as well." And it was absolutely spectacular. Um, and he also had this other line. He's like, I've tried it all. I've tried Buddhism. I've tried da 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 da. I've tried all the isms, but the cheerfulness just kept coming through.
Yeah.
And it's just brilliant. So the Jeff Buckley's The Hallelujah, of course, stays in your ether the way once you've heard it, it never leaves you. And so when I was having my son, they were like, when I was pregnant, we did the hypnobirthing, had the soundtrack, created the playlist, da da da. Everything on the day of my son's birth, of course, went wrong just because it just does. And the last thing I had left of the whole idea of how this beautiful, natural, sort of gorgeous, like singing with the angels birthday was going to have was my playlist. And as I was lying on the table awaiting my quote emergency C-section, they were changing doctors, they were changing anesthesiologists. And this new anesthesiologist comes in and just goes, "Can we just put the music off for a second? Because I need to just," and my husband just goes, "No, it's all she has left." And he just like stood up for me so fiercely. And my son was born to the Hallelujah. And so I got my playlist. I didn't
Oh,
get
that's
anything else from the day, but the boy child who I thought was a girl was born to the Hallelujah. And so there it lives.
there's definitely some magic in that. That's incredible story. And
Yeah.
like someone can stick with you now. You mentioned Lilac Wine. Again, that's another, even though Nina Simone is probably up there with Leonard Cohen for me, as
Mm,
my just as an artist, as what she was and still is. But Lilac Wine, his version, again, blows it away and
mm,
it's incredible.
mm,
So
mm. I mean, it's so heartbreaking because as you're speaking, I'm like, oh, I should have tried. Because Sinnerman is such a iconic song, like the Felix the Cat remix, and like there's all these other choosing 10 was very difficult. I'm like Sarah McLachlan, I forgot to put ice cream in there.
yeah. Um, Going from Jeff Buckley, track 6 is another. Well, we're going to hear him twice, or at least a part of him. But this is another icon from the '60s. I think is when he started. New York, Paul Simon. This is a
Mm.
later one of his albums. I'm not sure. I don't. I remember the song, but I know this was probably around his album Graceland. But this is not off that album. I don't think.
It is.
It is. Okay. Diamonds on the
Yeah.
soles of her shoes.
It was the first song on the second side of the cassette.
Yeah. Okay.
And the reason I picked it, so Graceland's something like my mom used to play it. My mom still plays it a lot. Not that she listens to music much, like she listens to radio. She doesn't put on chosen music much. But it is just indicative of time. Again, I think I'm probably about 15, 14, 15, 16. And we just loved that album. Ladysmith Black Mambazo was part of it, and that was just such a huge thing at the time, and it was really crazy. Also went to see Paul Simon. I realized I actually don't see concerts that much, but all the songs I gave you, I've seen. And uh, we saw the 25th anniversary tour of Graceland in Hyde Park with my husband, and that was epic. And he was incredible. And it's interesting that I ended up choosing two of his songs and not the choosing others. But anyway, so it is. But yeah, it's just that album, and the reason I picked that album is because that song, sorry, is because Graceland obviously get the song Graceland off the album Graceland gets a lot of recognition, and B-sides often get ignored. That whole B-side to that album is amazing. The second song after that, just because I used to listen to it on repeat, is Homeless, which was a cappella mostly with Ladysmith Black Mambazo, and that was like I've obviously I had heard a cappella music before, but not necessarily in that way. And Diamond on the Soles of Her Shoes, I just loved that idea. I think because I'm also very visual. You know, his poetry in that, like he slipped into her pocket. Standing by the bodegas and the lights of Upper Broadway. I didn't even know what a bodega was. I was just like, that sounds really cool. And in my mind, it was fairly funny actually. First,
Yeah.
I think when I first listened to it, in my mind, a bodega was like a beautiful house, and I didn't realize it was just a corner shop. And then
Yeah.
this image of this like someone with like almost like brogue shoes, like kind of like laced up shoes, but with actual big giant diamonds on it. Like it just sits in my mind still, like that vision I created in my head of what that would mean. And yeah, over
Well,
time.
I didn't remember the song from Graceland, although I had heard most of it probably at some point because I used to work in a record shop in New Orleans, and so we would have a lot of different types of music. So this would obviously be playing around that time. But there's a line in here that I loved when he's like, "He's a poor boy, empty as a pocket,"
Mm.
which
Empty as a
is
pocket with nothing to lose.
yeah, it's such a good line that and I actually became a fan of Simon and Garfunkel when I moved to the UK, which is so
Mm,
strange because obviously I knew him growing up as a kid, but never really
mm,
clicked until
mm.
I heard, I think, Cecilia or one of those songs in the UK at a party or
Classic, of
something. And
course.
then I'm like, that's Simon and Garfunkel. Why are you playing that? And then I realized it's just it's the stuff in from the US that obviously it's strange what gets people connect with
Right.
outside in Europe and everything. And
Mm,
so
mm.
that was but we'll get back to them. This next track, number 7, this is I think you were mentioning this about your son, Pete Seeger. She'll be coming around the mountain,
Mm,
which I'd never listened. I don't know
mm,
if this is the exact lyrics from the original folk song, or if this was
mm.
changed lyrics, but there's some lines in there about food and about wearing a red, um, is it a red robe or red
Um,
pajamas?
Red pajamas.
Yeah, which because
Yeah.
I don't remember listening to the whole song entirely. So hearing it now from your playlist,
Mm.
it's quite interesting the lyrics from
Well,
this.
it's so fun because we used to play that album, and my husband's responsible for that. My husband's actually the better musical taste in this family, but he used to play Pete Seeger to Luther, and also old Newfoundland fishing songs. I don't know why. We thought it was cooler than whatever baby music was out there. And but actually, because the lyrics were quite simple, and because folk music is quite simple to hear, understand, like for a
Hmm.
child, for kind of baby brain, it was really great. Like he loved it. And there was all those, and it was actually there's a couple of other songs that right now are not coming to me that I could have easily picked anyone, but "Should Be Coming Around the Mountain" is also something that like we used to sing when I was a kid, and so there's that connection. Like I actually until I heard Pete Seeger sing it, it hadn't occurred to me that it was actually a folk song and not
Hmm.
like a kid song in the way that like I don't know the way kids rhymes are. And it's just a time my son's in his high chair and he's just loving life and he's eating with his tiny little fork and food is going everywhere, but he's so happy. And when babies clap, they kind of they're so like big with that motion, and I can just see
Hmm.
it. And it's actually just happiness. And then having also just recently rewatched, not rewatched, watched the film about Bob Dylan with Timothy Chalamet, and the name of the film goes out of my head. Perfect. No. Anyways, but with Ed Norton playing Pete Seeger, or this imagined version of how that whole relationship went. And I was like, oh, I forgot how much we loved those songs, and actually having those really lovely, like, banjo, string, guitar. And I say simple, not as in simplistic, but just like easy for your ear to understand without so many
Hmm.
complex layers, without a load of beats, without a lot of drums, without a lot of just pure. And
Yeah.
that's a lovely sensation.
And that's also Pete Seeger. I wasn't that familiar with him. And when you mention now the Bob Dylan film, I do recall like reading a review about it or something, and they mentioned Pete Seeger. But I also, when doing some like on him, I found he's written a lot of protest songs. He wrote in like
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No,
1959
he was a big activist.
Turn, 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 which was made more famous probably by the Byrds. And he has a song Where Have All the Flowers Gone, which was another.
Mm,
And I guess the folk song She'll Be Coming Around the Mountain, I understood was from it actually comes from a slave song
mm,
called When the
I'm
Chariot Comes,
sure.
or
All right. Okay.
some type of hymn that I guess in the South that they must have done, and that's kind of how the origins of that. But yeah, there's a lot more depth to him, but but he has so many different types of songs he's done in his career, and a lot
Hmm.
of these, which I guess as a kid you think they're songs like you said. I thought this is the same. It was something like a nursery rhyme or something like that, but it actually has a lot
Mm.
more um, folk roots to it. So
Yeah, and he does have a lot of, like, both political or songs that on the surface are poetry or a bit of fun or whatever, but actually there's a lot more to it.
track eight, and I've heard this when it first came out. It was maybe linked to an advert, and then they play on the English radio down here in France quite regularly. So I've heard it on the radio recently, but then it's in one of my playlists somewhere. But it's a Spanish artist, if I'm not mistaken. I
Which
think.
one is it? I can't remember.
Um, do you say Jan? Jane? Jean?
Oh yeah, no, she's French.
She's French.
Um, uh, yeah, Makeba. Oh my God, that song just. And it was funny. I used to work when in my makeup days. I worked a lot with Jodie Whittaker, who is an amazing actress and human person here. And she did a not quite a Desert Island Discs, but there's, like, I think she did Desert Island Disco, which is like the kind of upbeat version.
Okay.
And she had it
That's
on her
good.
album, on her selections, because she said her little kids used to just, like, when it came out 2, 3 years ago, came out and dance. And that was the same. Like, it came out a couple of years ago, and even my son loves it. And we're like, Makeba, Makeba, Makeba. And but then also, having grown up in '90s, I remember I used to have the newspaper cutting of Mandela coming out of prison on my wall. The South African apartheid story was very part of my early teenage years, mid teenage years. I shot in
Yeah.
South Africa for two kind of seasons in a row, so I spent a lot of time there in the mid 2000s, mid noughties, and so, like, there's just this whole. It's like, and again, I just really always admire people who can take something really important and find a way to communicate that in a way that brings it into the psyche, in a
Hmm.
way that's not I want to say fun and lighthearted, but in a way that makes it accessible and makes you want to listen. And
Yeah.
so Miriam Makeba is an incredible activist, and I thought the way of honoring her was an incredible way of honoring her, and it's a tune.
Yeah. It does kind of it keeps the story relevant, and it updates it for people um
Mm,
to re to listen to it again and to discover. So I think that's great when
mm,
artists can kind of take something that's still important to make sure that it's not just forgotten or kind of put into the past. So incredible.
mm.
Track nine is,
Mm,
we mentioned Simon. Now we have his cohort
mm,
Garfunkel. This I would say this is
mm,
probably one of my favorites of Simon and
mm.
Garfunkel, the boxer. Um,
Yeah. So this once again is really like if I really saw this as my desert island disc, and I was just thinking about these moments, and I kind of let it be a bit instinctive, like what's coming to me. And I used to listen to that song on repeat and play it in my head and sing it to myself on repeat at 24 when I was actually a Muay Thai boxer. And so I've always been, I know, see, the eyebrows get raised. I'm a Gemini. I'm a manifesting generator. I am like, of all, like in every astrology you want to pick, I am the duality. I'm always the dual sign. I'm the sun and the moon. I'm a fire dragon. Like I'm all the things.
I
And
live with a
I have this
Gemini, so I
extreme,
know Geminis.
good luck, enjoy.
Yeah.
Um, and people used to say, "Oh, Geminis are two-faced," and I said, "No, we're not two-faced. We just have a really high capacity to hold two things that are very opposed to be true." And so I'm very feminine in certain ways. I was already a makeup artist by then. I was already working, but I had a boyfriend at the time. I was 24, and he was into Muay Thai, and I had been looking for. I'd been going to the gym. I'd done dance when I was younger. I'd done like volleyball and dance and school stuff, but I'd stopped dance when I was 16, 17. And by 24, I liked sports, but I wasn't very much team sport person. I was more of a solo sport person. I wasn't into running. And so I went along to one of the classes and I loved it. And it was sort of the first time since dance that I had to kind of control my body with movements in a
Hmm.
certain way. And that was fun and exciting to me. And I only ever did it as training. I learned to skip then and all of that stuff. And then at one point, my seafood was just like, "Hey, do you want to do some like fun fights?" And so I did. I mean, it was scary as hell, and we were all padded up, and it was amateur, and it was whatever. But I played that song on repeat. I mean, I trained really hard. I trained really hard, and I used to just play that song and think of, and it was about the idea of the boxer, of course, the boxer, but and he carries the reminder of every cut that laid him down and every punch that laid him down and cut him till he cried out in his anger
Yeah.
and his pain, I am leaving, but the fighter still remains." And that is literally the mantra of my life. The fighter still
Wow.
remains. Like I have been knocked down so many times. I talk about this a lot when I talk about my coaching and my confidence coaching and how I came to it. And when you are an artist of any kind, but especially as a freelancer, and especially when you are basically putting yourself in the path of rejection over and over and over again. You don't have a steady job. If you don't get hired, you have no money. You
Right.
go and you apply for the job. You put yourself out there. You take your portfolio. "Please hire me. This is the art I do." Over and over again, you get those no's. Every artist, every actor knows this. And you get back up or nothing
Right.
happens. And I think, and that's, I think, what's really had held me in good stead. And that's why I feel really confident now. So, like, I wanted to move from people, making people feel confident on the outside, move to the inside. But I also feel confident. I used to not feel confident saying I can help you with business. And I kind of have this line that I need to do a post about this is like, I might not be able to help you with your cash flow problems, but I'll help you become the person who can. You can help yourself with your cash flow problems. Because for me, it's really about identity and embodiment and moving into a business owner. Like instead of feeling like a freelancer, feeling like an entrepreneur and business owner, that's an identity shift. And that's where the fighter, the boxer comes in, because entrepreneurship is not for the faint of heart. Like you have to have this inner resilience and you can build it. That's the thing. This is the thing about confidence, about resilience. These are not things you're always born with. These are things that you can build like any other skill. And the idea of the boxer getting back up, even though you bear the marks, and you bear the marks and scars, but you allow those scars to fuel you and you heal
Yeah.
them and you work around them. And that is just such an image that was useful at the time when I was actually in a physical fight for in a competitive arena, in a competitive, fun sport way, leisure way. But it is something that will hold anyone who has any business or any entrepreneurship or any freelancing career. It will hold you in good stead. You have to keep going until the day you decide you are complete. Because failure
It's
is not even the end. You have to just decide that you're complete with what you're doing and you're going to do something else.
it sounds like this has been ingrained as a discipline in you, and so you can take it into all of the work that you're doing. And so, especially like you say, when you get maybe which feels like a rejection, you have to make sure that your discipline doesn't allow you to let that that seems like a failure, because it doesn't necessarily mean it is a failure. It's just that this is not the right time for this or this opportunity. But it seems like you have that discipline in you. And I think for the time that I've known you, um, you've been really inspirational for me to see you share vulnerably. You've shared things personal regarding your career, regarding your personal journey and growth. And so that's been very inspiring to kind of see how you support and work with other people, but also how we're all kind of still works in progress as well.
100%. And I think it's more in retrospect that I see that theme. And I think it's learning. I think the past 3 years has been a real. The first person who said this to me, not directly, but in her work, is Maisie Hill. And I was part of Maisie Hill's membership. She's an incredible coach, leadership coach. She comes from a background of hormone and therapy and acupuncture and all sorts. But she said the in one of her calls, on one of her group calls, the first time I heard this, and now a lot of people say this, is you don't make it mean something about you. And that was really a change, whereas that is the big switch that as a freelancer, every time I got quote rejected or didn't get the job, it really would crush me. I got back up out of fear of not making income, not out of sheer belief in my own self. It was
Mhm.
fear that drove me forward, which is not the most amazing driver on earth. It gets stuff done, but it eats your soul away.
Right.
But when Maisie Hill said that on a call at some point, and she has an incredible podcast as well, it really opened up this new thing where it's like, oh, wait a minute, that didn't work out, but it doesn't mean that I didn't work out. And it was like that light bulb moment, probably only about 4 years ago, was like, oh, okay. And of course, it is natural to, for me, I mean, it happens to me. I had a big wobble a couple weeks ago, like, where you're like, oh, I'm going to quit everything because like I'm just terrible at this and I'm so crappy and no one's listening to me and no one's hearing me and no one's buying that thing that I decided I wanted to do or blah. And then you're like, no, it doesn't mean something about me. I'm not like, this is the detour in the right direction. The Gabby Bernstein, like every rejection is a detour in the right direction. Oh yeah, I forgot that. I forgot. I needed to remember. I needed to remind myself. And so, even in my coaching and in my masterminds, our mutual coach, Elisa, I think she says this as well. It's just, it doesn't mean something about you and your value and your worth. So you can feel the feelings, but then don't live in the feelings.
Yeah. You mentioned one of the first, I think it was a book or an artist that kind of got you into early on. And I think you said this was when you were still in Montreal that you kind of got more into the spirituality side. And then from what I understand, there's also you created the Radiate method.
Yeah, so this is the method that I talk about. And basically, it's kind of just an evolution around, it kind of is the culmination of like a bunch of things that I think and believe. But last year, I ran a mini program called Radiate to help women in midlife rediscover their confidence. And I'm all about radiating your confidence from the inside out. And this is a layered thing, but fundamentally, it boils down to finding those stories, those beliefs that you told yourself that you believe to be true, really looking at them, dropping into deep acceptance that they are there or that they have happened or they are existing and they are part of you. They are not something to silence, to remove, to shift or whatever, that it's about the acceptance of them. Then we dismantle those stories and then we replace them or we move around them with tapping, with actions, with we replace those old stories with new stories. And it's just how we get to that. And there's I'm really fond of EFT tapping, but meditation comes into this, like practices around getting up, I think this line is from Debbie Dobbins, but our mutual lovely friend Debbie Dobbins, but
Mhm.
it might be from other people, but like wake up and choose your thoughts before your thoughts choose you. So it's like I'm always inspiring my clients, like first thing when you wake up, get something in your ears and in your head, whether it's a guided meditation, whether it's music that is, and it's funny because I've been waking up really early because of the light, even though I've got these sleep mask and everything, I still wake up like naturally. And I can honestly hear my thoughts begin. I can hear the post that I want to write. I can hear the to-do list. I can hear the, oh my God, that I need to go to the grocery store. And it's like I kind of clamber to the side of the bed where my earphones are. Gang, just put something in. Put something in that's not whatever this looping narrative is. And or I'm really into there's a Kimberly Snyder. I'm reading the Hidden Power of the Five Hearts. She has a heart coherence meditation and stuff. So the Radiate method really involves like those are the simple 3 steps, like identify the story, dismantle the story, tap and rewire a new story. But it is layered with other practices like choose your thoughts before your thoughts choose you, get into action, get into motion, all of that, the getting back up. It's all about the getting back up.
We come to track 10. This is your last song that you've chosen. It's from a UK band. I think they're from Manchester. I saw them in Chicago off their first album in 2002. I want to say it was when I saw them at a tiny club. And then they've kind of gone beyond and much bigger as they are now. This song, I think, is probably one of their most iconic songs. Or did they use it in the Olympics in 2012 as well? I don't remember. I know that
I can't remember.
It's called One Day Like This, but it's a beautiful song.
Yeah. It is a beautiful song. It's a song I walked down the aisle to. It was, we got married in 2011. It was like sort of really in the zeitgeist of that moment. But it is a fantastic song in terms of like, as you know, I'm a rather optimistic person, even on my dark days. And it is that idea of like, blow those curtains wide. And it's just this idea of opening, like, like in all those sort of, that kind of visual, like in films when someone's sick or depressed or tired, they're in a dark room with the curtains drawn. And it, like the other character who's trying to save them always comes in and opens the curtain, like, let some air in, let's open these curtains. It's always it's that same idea. And it is a beautiful song and it's a meaningful song and it always makes me smile. It just always makes me smile. Guy Garvey has an incredible radio show on BBC Six, Radio 6, where he plays incredible songs as well. And he's just obviously such a bit like you, like just a music, beyond lover, studier, as it were. And so like there's always a great song, a great tune, a great new artist that he plays that I discover. But it was just really of the time. I remember someone saying weddings are optimism flying in the face of statistics, where it's just always such a beautiful, beautiful moment. And frankly, the best wedding I ever went to was my own. And so it was a great day. It was in fact a beautiful day.
Oh. Well, that's a great memory, and thank you for sharing that with us too.
Pleasure.
Tell us also where we can find you on social media, because I know you have a website, you have on Instagram, LinkedIn.
Yep. So on my website is balancebytahira.com. My Instagram is @balancebytahira, and on LinkedIn I am simply Tahira Herald. And my mission is really to help everyone radiate confidence from the inside out, because I promise you have a mission and a message that people need to hear in your way. And I just want you to get it out there, because the world needs the light workers. The world needs people like you for other people. So that's what I'm here for.
That's beautiful. Thank you for that. And always to you and to everyone listening, be kind, be humble, be love. Thank you, Tahira.
Thank you so much. It's been beautiful. Thank you.